Jai. Vishnu Bhakti Pradadevi Satchavachanamo Namah. Tuesday Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. I offer our respect.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Padamahansa Padavrajakacharyasta Sata Shri Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrindi Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Goho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Vimunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Gaura Premananda Hari Hari Bol, all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shishi Guru and Garanga and His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're in the 10th canto, chapter 42, which is the breaking of the sacrificial bow, and we're starting with text 13. So, I guess, is there anybody that can manage it? Sorry for those of you online that might be listening. We had some technical difficulty with getting the verse up. Okay, so text 13. Vishrajam. Is it up? Is this 13? Okay. Yeah, you'll just have to arrow up a little bit to get the top line more visible. Okay. So Vishraja Madhva Vanya Tam Vrajan Marge Vanikpatahe Nanopayana Tambula Shrag Gandai Sagrajor Chittaha Vishrija Madhya Vanyatam Vrajan Marge Vanikpatai Nanopayana Tambula Shragandai Sagrajorchitaha Georgia Vishraja Madhya Vanyatam Vrajan Marge Vanikpatai Nanopayana Tambula Shragandai Sagrajorchita Vishraja Madhya Vanyatam Rajan Marge Vanikpatai Nanopayana Tambula Shragandai Sagrajorchita Vishraja Madhya Vanyatam Rajan Marge Vanikpatai Nanopayana Tambula Sagrandai Sagrajorchita. Anybody else? Okay. Vishraja, leaving. Madhya, sweet. Vanya, with words. Tam, her. Vrajan, walking. Marge, along the road. Vanikpatahai, by the merchants. Nana, with various. Upayana, respectful offerings. Tambula, betel nut. Shrak, garlands. Gandhai, and fragrant substances. Sa, together with. Agrajaha, his elder brother. Architaha, worshipped. Okay, so translation. Leaving her with these sweet words, Lord Krishna walked further down the road. The merchants along the way worshipped him and his elder brother by presenting them with various respectful offerings, including pan, garlands, and fragrant substances. So you can repeat. Leaving her with these sweet words, Lord Krishna walked further down the road. The merchants along the way worshipped him and his elder brother by presenting them with various respectful offerings, including pan, garlands, and fragrant substances. So Omiyana Timiranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'm going to do 14 as well, but I'm going to start with 13 and then I'll move to text 14. And as I was as we were singing and going through the word for word translations, it reminded me of how in the spiritual world every word is a song and every step is a dance. And even with the reciting of this verse, we get to sing the verse and start like this whole process of learning what it's like to live in the spiritual world. And with kirtan and bhajans and all these things that Prabhupada brought for us, how amazing it is. And I guess, too, the other thing, as I was here, there's not so many of us here, but I was thinking how we have this wonderful family of devotees here, very intimate and connected, and especially through Radha Golokananda, we're just so fortunate, to have these wonderful close relationships and a loving intimate temple with dear friends and disciples gathered together. We're just so very fortunate to have all of that. So I was gonna start with the commentary on this 13th verse, and because there's some interesting, it's not too much more descriptive, but enough that it was enlivening for me, so I thought I would share it. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur only has a couple of sentences, and then Sanatan Goswami's is pretty much the same as Jiva Goswami's, so I thought I would read that. Jiva Goswami comments that the merchants worshipped him with various offerings. Betel nut, garlands, and scents are particularly mentioned because they were offered in abundance. The garlands were made of jewels and pearls. The scents were unguents like sandalwood mixed with agaru and other special ingredients with various colors. He was worshipped along with Balaram and the other boys. They were first worshipped by Brahmanas near the Yamuna at the edge of the city. A little further within the city, they are now worshipped by the Vaishyas. They were now worshipped by the Vaishyas. Kshatriyas generally dwelled in the center of the city, thus their worship of Krishna is not mentioned. But I was imagining, and it's really important as we do this, as we go through and we read all these things, is to imagine these things in our mind and let us, our imagination take our heart and our devotion and develop these mental pictures of all these different activities of Krishna to embed them in our heart, right? And make them more real. If they're just, like on an intelligence level, but not really on the heart level, then it's possible that we could do things like, isn't it niyamagraha, like just ritualistically. We have to be super careful about that. So taking these and imagining what's going on. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that the garlands were made of jewels and pearls. And of all the descriptions that I've heard in many of the classes over the years from very beginning, I was very fortunate that when I first joined and first came to the temple, we were starting with the very first canto. So I've been here through this whole process of going through the first to now the 10th canto and further, but I've never heard the garlands described as being made of jewels and pearls, right? I mean, we definitely decorate the deities with jewels and pearls, but not the garlands. I've never thought about that, and that was just like, and then all these unguent, perfumes. If you can just imagine the Supreme Personality of Godhead with all these, gold and pearl and the different unguents, and then, they're smearing these different paste, and they must be luminescent. The Lord is probably luminescent, and all these things just, must be like, if you were to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, your mouth would probably just drop, and stay open, and just, wow, just amazing. So then I'm going to go ahead and sing the 14th verse and read that one as well, and then I'll go on with sharing some of the notes that I made. Excuse me. Okay. Tadarshana smarang shobad atmanam na vidanshtriya vishrasta vasakavara valaya lekya murtyaha. The sight of Krishna aroused Cupid in the hearts of the city women. Thus agitated, they forgot themselves. Their clothes, braids, and bangles became disheveled, and they stood as still as figures in a painting. So again, there you go. I didn't even think about that, but you know, they were just so overwhelmed with seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead that they stood there like figures in paintings. I mean, it just must be overwhelming to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's the source of all sources, source of all, um, is the source of everything. He's the most beautiful in all the worlds. He's got all the strength. He's all attractive. I mean, it's just has to be completely overwhelming to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let's go with some of the descriptions in this purport. There's actually a purport with this verse that was written by the disciples of His Holiness Srila Prabhupada. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti states that since the women of Mathura immediately experienced symptoms of conjugal attraction when they saw Krishna, they were the most advanced devotees in the city. The 10 effects of Cupid are described as follows. Chakshusraga pratamam chitta sangas tatota sankalpa nidraschedas tanuta vishaya nivritis trapanashaha unmado murcha mritir iti yata shmaradasya dashaiva syu. First comes attraction, expressed through the eyes, then intense attachment in the mind, and then determination, loss of sleep, becoming emaciated, disinterest in external things, shamelessness, madness, becoming stunned, and death. These are the 10 stages of Cupid's effects. And of course, when you're thinking of this, if you're familiar, it's also very similar to what happens with the gopis, right? So Vishwanath Chakravarti also points out that devotees who possess pure love of Godhead generally do not exhibit the symptom of death, since this is inauspicious in relation to Krishna. They do, however, manifest the other 9 symptoms, culminating in becoming stunned in ecstasy. So, the wives of the merchants were the best of devotees. There are 10 stages of kama, which we've been through. Attraction by sight. And you can imagine this too, like Krishna is not just a man that's standing there that's just all attractive like some famous movie star, etc. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And every aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental, is spiritual. So when you see him, it's going through the eyes. You can see how it's going through this process. All this spiritual energy is going through the eyes and then into the heart, then the determination and the intelligence, sleeplessness, wasting away, loss of interest in other objects, absence of shame, like having no shame other than pleasing Krishna, so that nothing stops us. There's no social norms, anything that stops us from serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Madness, loss of consciousness, and death. Though these symptoms manifest in stages, at this time they manifest all at once by seeing Krishna. Who are we? Where are we? What are we doing? They were unable to properly understand this. In this way, they manifested symptoms of loss of shame. Because of the impulse of kama, they became thin, and thus the bangles and clothing fell from their bodies, wasting away. Loosening of their hair was due to the rolling on the ground, trembling, stretching of limbs, which are all signs of madness, unmada. Standing like painted pictures indicates the 9th state of loss of consciousness, because the 10th state, death, is inauspicious. It does not usually manifest. So I was just thinking about, that, again, this made me think of the 9 processes of devotional service, and that anything inauspicious is not related to Krishna, but everything auspicious is related to Krishna, and everything related to Krishna is auspicious. And so, I'm thinking about this whole process of Krishna going through the town and going through all these interactions with all the different, people that are on the way to him going to the sacrificial arena for this ultimate fight, that there's this unfolding of the different relationships that people have with Krishna. And we can see that through, these different interactions that he has. And ultimately, what that means is that their different consciousness and the different relationships that these different people have with Krishna end with very different results. And so, I was, again, thinking of this relationship, I'm going through this, how everybody, depending, because like even at the end, when he's having this fight with Kamsa, you know, there's this description that's given in the Krishna book where everybody sees Krishna in accordance with the relationship that they have with him, and we can see this working out in as he's walking towards the sacrificial arena. And then we can think about, because that's something I always do, is I try to figure out how this relates to me personally and how I can grow personally. Like last time, I was thinking about envy and humility and all the things that, I need to work on in my heart. And so then I'm thinking too, as, like, in other words, if I was on that street and Krishna was walking down the street towards the sacrificial arena, having these different interactions, what would my interaction be with him? What would my consciousness be? And, I certainly don't think I would have necessarily demoniac tendencies, but I'm not sure, at this particular stage in my devotional life, that I would have pure, conscious, like, would I have the courage to give him these things that are meant for Kamsa, right? And, like right now, if there was something that was meant to be for somebody else, would I have the, that courage to be shameless and to not worry what anybody was thinking about me? Would I have that ability to give Krishna what he wants without thinking about what everybody else thinks, or who, am I going to get in trouble for giving it to him until somebody else? Like, what would my consciousness be if I was in that situation? And so I see, as he's making this grand walk down this street to his ultimate, fight with Kamsa eventually, and the death of Kamsa, is like our devotional life, and especially the fact that we are so fortunate to have this process of Krishna consciousness, and why I was so enlivened, with being here at New Goloka and with the different devotees and the different relationships that we have, and how intimate and small and personal it is, of what an amazing opportunity it is to have this shelter and the association of the devotees to work through those things, as if we're walking down, we're making this journey down this path towards our relationship with Krishna, and we're trying to shed all these different anartas and unwanted things in the heart, like envy and anger and frustration and judgment and designations, all these different things that come up for us. We have this sheltered environment, because sometimes it can be very scary, and it takes a lot of courage to take personal responsibility for your actions, right? It's so easy to blame other people for your actions, and I'm even having this, personal experience where there's this family drama, so to speak, where one of my siblings, of which I only have one, is having this huge argument with my mother over this very minor, what would you call it? Another word, this use of a word. My mother used a very specific word, and it triggered her to get really so angry that she didn't talk to my mother basically for a week. And I'm thinking, and then after speaking to my mother, she interpreted that word one way. My mother meant it another way. And I'm just thinking, again, all these different interactions that we have, and these the colored vision and the language we use to decipher somebody else's language can get us into this place of being entangled in this material world, and making all these different judgments about other people's motives and misunderstandings, when, really, obviously, the best solution is to be Krishna conscious and to let go of those things. But as we're doing it, it takes a lot of courage. And I could see, partly because my sister struggles with self-esteem, that she was actually having difficulty taking responsibility for her part of it. My mother took the responsibility. She apologized, she expressed what she actually meant, but my sister wasn't willing to let that go and still hasn't. She's pretending like everything is okay. And and so I was thinking, it takes a lot of courage to take responsibility for your actions, right? For doing something that you did perhaps not the right way. But the wonderful thing, especially as for those of us that have taken up Krishna consciousness, is that we have shelter, um, that will support us. And the amazing thing is if we do take personal responsibility, we'll have amazing realizations and we'll progress on our spiritual path, and we'll get the rewards from, you know, taking the initiative to be personally responsible. And then we'll continue to be enlivened by all these different realizations and depth of, greater depth of our relationship with Krishna. And that's what happens on this progressive path. And it's so beneficial to see the different relationships that Krishna is having so that we can make better choices, about our relationship with Krishna and what we should do, what is right and what is wrong. It speaks about that in the Bhagavad Gita, that there's those, basically, that those that are entangled in the material world don't know what is right, don't know what action is and inaction is. They don't know how to act appropriately without getting entangled in this material world. And so, um, you know, and the other thing is, I was thinking about how, the result of this, like walking down this path of developing a relationship with Krishna, and what it looks like, and something that came to mind is something that my spiritual master has given the example of very, many, many times, is the difference of those who worship Krishna and those who worship Shiva, right? Shiva is, dressed in ashes. He has a garland of skulls, and probably, and his hair is probably matted. He looks, very, very different than Krishna, obviously. But his devotees are generally very opulent, because of worshiping him. And on the other hand, you have Krishna, who's the most opulent, dressed in garlands that are made from jewels and pearls, and many times his devotees are destitute, right? And one of the things that my spiritual master talks about, and that I think is really important, is that those that worship Krishna are actually left with a pure heart. They're fulfilled. Um, there's this constant relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where they're satisfied on the very deepest level, on the soul level, where, so that all these externals don't mean anything. And I remember, also related to that, is that I remember reading somebody criticizing the devotees early on, like a family member was paying obeisances to Prabhupada, on the street, and there were cigarette butts and so many different things, lying around. But, and I was thinking, but don't you understand that they love him so much for everything that he's done for them, that they're willing to pay obeisances no matter what the circumstances are. Their love is so great that none of these external things matter, right? They're not too good to do that. And so then, in contrast, you've got, those people that worship Lord Shiva. If they don't worship him as a devotee of Krishna, many times that's not done. And so, but they have this temporary uh, opulence that they have from worshiping him, but you can't really hold on that at the end of life. What can you hold on to the end of life when you practice Krishna consciousness and have a relationship with Krishna? is that at the very least we get to come back in a human form of life and continue to progress spiritually and ultimately get to go back home to Godhead and have a relationship with God versus being entangled in all this material nonsense, the body, and so many, accoutrements, as they say in French, so many attachments that come with and embellishments that come with, this material world because we think that's what's going to make us safe, right? And that's what the washerman, or, this wasn't the washerman, that had the fabrics that didn't, or the fabric that didn't want to give it to Krishna because he was afraid of what Kamsa was going to do, or was actually so nasty that he said they belonged to, Kamsa without realizing this is the supreme personality of Godhead. You know, it's just such a different contrast. Like, you know, and sometimes we can have that mentality, so we want to try to avoid that at all cost. But with Krishna consciousness, that all gets to go away, and we remove all these layers, and we have this relationship with Krishna. And it's so fortunate. And I was thinking about this in the context because we've had some devotees that have recently passed away, and some maybe not such in favorable circumstances, and some yes. But then I was thinking how magnanimous and how benevolent and how loving the supreme personality of Godhead is, because no matter what, if anybody has done anything in the service of Krishna, he will give them the opportunity to pick that up in their next life. They will lose absolutely nothing, and they will be able to come back and pick up with that little bit of what they started with and get to go again. I mean, and certainly our desire and our free will can take us in a different direction, but Krishna loves us so much, and the spiritual master loves us so much that they're willing to give so much concession. I remember somebody talking about how, because of all the four regulative principles, that Prabhupada was not liberal, but he argued back that he was very liberal. And if you look at his history, and what he tolerated, you could understand that he's very liberal, under, by no doubt. But again, this benevolence of the Lord, to remember, whatever little service we've done, he'll never let go of that. And he's so merciful. And my spiritual master talks about this all the time, is that Krishna is a person. He's not a material person, he's a spiritual person, but he has emotions, he has feelings, he has compassion, he has love. He has anger for those people that are mistreating his devotees, but, he is a person. He's not just this rigid person sitting in this chair judging people and sending them heaven. Okay, you go to heaven, you go to hell, you go to heaven, you go to hell, and that's it, you're done. He's not. He's, whatever he does, including what may appear to be an inauspicious death, is really for somebody who may be committing, inauspicious acts like Shishupal. He didn't want them to continue. So he may remove them from their particular, life, this particular life, so that they can work things out, come back and pick it up and take up their devotional service again, because he loves every single loving entity in the core of his heart, because they're parts and parcels of him. Any parent who has a child is so attached to them and so loves them. And the thing about Krishna's love, and I was thinking about this, I had this realization, it's like, so often we have relationship between male and female, and they have this isolated relationship where it's just them. But the thing is love, a loving relationship with Krishna can love everybody, and nobody will be left without enough, right? And it's not that it has to be just this one relationship between myself and Krishna or somebody else and Krishna. Krishna's love is big enough to love everybody. We're just so fortunate, to have all of that. And then I was thinking about this because the verse that came to mind for me, or there is a verse that in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, which is text 40. In this endeavor, and it's a very famous verse, in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%, whereas a material activity without 100% success without 100% success, there is no profit. A Jamel performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. So here again, material activities and their results end with the body, but work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life to be born again as a human being, either in a family of great cultured Brahmana or in a rich aristocratic family that will give one future chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. So how fortunate are we, you know, to have this grace and mercy and love? And, because thinking about this, I think about my own challenges because I'm not perfect. I do things so imperfectly. I'm, easily distracted. And, I have anartas and things that I have to work out in my heart and in my consciousness. But I have so much, encouragement and enlivenment, one by my spiritual master, always being there for me, but also knowing that Krishna is always there, and that even if I don't complete it in this life, I will be able to come back and make more progress. Right? I've got my back covered by both my spiritual master Krishna, and Radha Golokananda. I know they love me unconditionally. So, and again, it's like this whole reciprocal thing. Then that encourages me to continue to try to get up every day and get out of bed. And no matter what I was incomplete in doing yesterday, realizing the grace and the mercy that I have to be able to get up the next day and try again, to try to please my spiritual master, to try to please Srila Prabhupada and Radha Golokananda and all the devotees, of trying to be a better person and become a better person, so that when I'm interacting with the devotees, that I'm more Krishna conscious. We just have so much mercy in this process, and understanding that Krishna is a person and that he is magnanimous and he is so benevolent and loving, that he's, and sometimes he has to be, you know a little bit harsh with things, so that we can understand the import of what our actions may be, so that we can be corrected, so that we don't go down the wrong path. But ultimately we have to know that he's our well-wisher and the one who loves us the most. So I think probably the conch will blow soon. But I was just thinking, we're walking down this road, um, and we have the opportunity through reading these pastimes, to see where we can improve, but also be encouraged by the fact that we have Krishna as our backer, right? He's the one who's going to support us, and then no matter what's happening, especially, and my spiritual master says this over and over again, is that because we've taken up devotional service, Krishna has taken control of our devotional life. So everything that's happening is happening through his arrangement to help us come back into his loving fold. We're just, I mean, wow, how fortunate are we, to have that opportunity, and be humbled by that, and being humbled to the point of understanding, how can I help somebody else obtain that, right? How can I show somebody else that love and that care, so that they can get, entangled in this beautiful reciprocating relationship with Krishna. We're just so fortunate. Oh, it's almost, yeah, saved by the conch. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the Association of the Devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories. Shri Radha Golokananda Ki Jai.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanbanda Aravindalayatatam Bhagavatam Samasitam Purasundaram Kandar Pakom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andaniya Kriya Priti Manti Vasyanti Vidhayanti Viramanti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Dara Vikrasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Yasomati Nandana Brajo Barona Yasomati Nandana Brajo Barona Gokularam Jana Gana Gopi Paranadana Badana Manohara Kalia Damona Vidana Kalia Damona Vidana Somachinandana Brajo Baronagara Gokularam Jana Kana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Kalia Damona Vidana Amala Harinam Amya Vilasa Amala Harinam Amya Vilasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nagarabura Pansivadana Suvasa Brajajana Palana Surakulana Sana Nanda Godanara Kayala Govinda Madhava Navanita Tajkara Govinda Madhava Navanita Tajkara Sundarananda Gopala Jamuna Tata Chara Gopi Vasanahara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Yasamati Nandana Brajo Barunagara Gokularam Janakana Amala Harinam Mamiya Vilasa Govinda Madhava Navanita Tajkara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Bhakti Vinoda Sraya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Bo. Jayo Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radhe. Jayo Radhe, Jayo Radhe, Jayo Radhe, Jayo Sri Radhe. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Sri Vrindavadam. Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Sila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna is beloved son of Yashoda, transcendental lover in the land of Braja, the delight of Gokula, known the name Kana, the wealth of the lives of the gopis, the attractor of Cupid, and punisher of the serpent Kalia. These pure, holy names of Lord Hari are full of sweet, nectarian pastimes. Lord of the 12 forests of Braja, ever youthful, the best of lovers, players of the flute, and excellent dresser, protector of the inhabitants of Braja, destroyer of the demonic dynasties, keeper and tender of Nanda's cows, giver of pleasure to cows, land and spiritual senses, husband of the goodness of fortune, butter thief, and beautiful little cowherd boy of Nanda Maharaj, wanderer of the Jamuna riverbanks, thief of the garment of the gopis, enjoyer of the mellows of the rasa dance, very merciful, lover and beloved of Sri Radha, the great dancer of Vrindavan, and the only shelter of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Haribo! Yakaraiva Chandrika Vitaranam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Bhujivardhanam Pratipadam Punamrita Swadanam Sarvatmajna Param Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Nana Makari Bahuda Nija Sava Saktis Tata Pritan Yamita Smarani Nakala Bhagavam Mamapi Dudaivam Idrishan Hajanina Nuragam Trinada Pisunichana, Tarora Pisahijna, Amanina Manadana, Kirtanya Sadharin, Nadanam Najanam Nasundarin, Kavitam Vajagadishagamaye, Mama Jamani Jamanishvari, Bhavata Bhakti Haitukitwaye, Ainanda Tanujakin Karam, Pajitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho, Kripaya Tavapada Pankaja, Shtita Dulisa Drisham Vichintaya, Nayanangala Desrudaraya, Vadanangangara Rudaya Gira, Pulakai Nichitam Vapukada, Tavanamangrahan Vavishaji, Jugaitam Nimishana, Chakshusha Pravrisaitam, Sunyaitam Jaga Sarvango Vinda Virahename, Ailishava padaratam pinashtumam madarshana mamatam karotuva jatatatava vidatato lampato ma pranatastu saiva na paraha. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Oh my Lord, congregational chant of your holy name alone can render all benedictions to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to fully, easily approach you by your holy name, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Oh, my Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any numbers of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaja Nanda Krishna, I am eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have been fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling a separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like tongues of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain, so even he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free, and for his always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally.